Thompson and Venables were both 10 years old when they abducted, tortured, and murdered 2-year-old James Bulger in Liverpool, England in 1993. Robert Thompson and Jon Venables appeared to be two normal 10-year-olds at first glance. However, in 1993, these two British boys turned cold-blooded murderers and killed a young child. The brutality of their crime and their young age shocked the United Kingdom to its core. Robert Thompson and Jon Venables kidnapped James Bulger, a 2-year-old boy, from the new Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle, England, on February 12, 1993. They then took him to Walton in Liverpool, where they tortured, beat, and dumped his body on a railway track in an effort to make it look like an accident. CCTV footage revealed the shocking truth that Bulger had been taken by two children, despite the fact that authorities initially believed he had been taken by an adult. Bulger's body was discovered on the same railway track where his killers had left him just a few days earlier. A train had severed his body in two. Soon after, an anonymous caller informed the police that Thompson and Venables were responsible for the murder, revealing that both boys had missed school on the day Bulger disappeared and that Venables' jacket may have contained criminal evidence. As soon as the boys were taken into custody, they quickly turned against one another. Britain was horrified by the murders committed by the 10-year-olds. The story of Robert Thompson and Jon Venables still shocks today, nearly 3 decades later. But unfortunately, their story didn't end in 1993. How Robert Thompson and Jon Venables kidnapped and killed James Bulger. Both Robert Thompson and Jon Venables had unpleasant early years. Thompson was born on August 23, 1982, in Liverpool, England, the fifth of 7 children. His depressed mother turned to alcohol and even made a suicide attempt as a result of his father's early abandonment of the family. Venables was also born in Liverpool on August 13, 1982, just a few days before Thompson. Venables, like Thompson, had separated parents. Despite the fact that Venables' father was still in the picture, the young boy's mother was known to be harsh. She was also accused of being loose and frequently seen with multiple men. The two boys were close friends by the time Thompson and Venables skipped school together on February 12, 1993. They were known to break rules, but most of the time they were involved in low-level crimes like stealing small items from stores and throwing them down mall escalators. However, on that fateful day, the two boys would kidnap and kill a child, elevating their crimes to a horrific new level. Surprisingly, they didn't just target James Bulger that day. They first tried to get a girl who was 3 years old and her brother who was 2 years old away from their mother. Despite their failure, Thompson and Venables did not give up. They grabbed Bulger when they saw him in a butcher shop. Denise Fergus, Bulger's mother, had been holding his hand but had let go to pay for groceries. When she looked down, she was horrified to see that her child had vanished. Fergus said later, "I shouldn't have let go of his hand. I made my biggest mistake that day. I shouldn't have given up." At 3:42 p.m., the 3 children were caught on security cameras walking outside. Fergus had already told mall security, who told shoppers several times about the missing child. However, the boy had not been seen since 4:15 p.m., so he was quickly reported missing to the police. Denise Fergus and Ralph Bulger, her then husband, were worried sick. In the meantime, Robert Thompson and Jon Venables steered the infant away from the shopping center and toward a different town. Some on the street were concerned about Thompson and Venables' aggressive behavior toward Bulger, despite the fact that many of them believed the 3 boys to be siblings. Later, some witnesses said that the older boys kicked, punched, and shook Bulger in plain sight. Despite the fact that some adults stopped to ask the boys some questions, they all let the boys go, presumably thinking Bulger was being taken home or to the police station. Many of them would later express regret for not doing anything. In Walton, Thompson and Venables eventually arrived close to a railway track. They sprayed Bulger's eyes with stolen blue paint there. After that, they hit him hard with bricks and stones, kicked his battered body, and stuffed batteries into his mouth. Finally, a 22-pound iron bar struck Bulger in the head. That blow alone caused 10 skull breaks. In all, Bulger had suffered 42 severe wounds by the time he passed away. The child's final, heartbreaking words were, "I want my mother." After murdering Bulger, Thompson and Venables placed his body on the railway track in an attempt to make his death look accidental. However, a train came and cut off Bulger's body in two. Clearly, his downfall was no mishap. 2 days later, a group of terrified teenage boys playing in the area would discover his body. How the 10-year-old killers were apprehended despite the fact that James Bulger's abduction was caught on camera. Police had few possible suspects. What's more, they believed that the hijackers might have been 13 or 14 years of age, which threw them off track. But as they looked at the lists of kids who hadn't been to the local schools that day, they soon got an anonymous phone call saying that Venables and Thompson were to blame for the crime. Venables had also been observed with blue paint on his jacket, the same color Bulger had been blinded in during his torture, in addition to both boys being absent that day. Soon after, the police went to both boys' homes. They also discovered blood on Thompson's shoes and blue paint on Venables' jacket. A little less than a week after the murder, on February 18, 1993, Robert Thompson and Jon Venables were arrested. Thompson initially denied everything, but Venables made his confession quickly. Venables before long exclaimed, "I did kill him." "What about his mum? Will you tell her I'm sorry?" However, Thompson made a solid attempt not to implicate himself while he was addressing the questioners. He fizzled when he gave a nitty-gritty record of what James Bulger had been wearing on the day he was killed. "As far as I'm concerned that day, I stared evil in the face," Detective Phil Roberts said after questioning Thompson and Venables. "They were a match made in hell," Roberts added. "A peculiarity. I truly believe that they went out that day to kill. Additionally, I worry that they would have struck again if they hadn't been caught." Roberts believed Thompson was in charge despite the fact that both boys had killed Bulger. Also, Roberts wasn't the one to focus on. During the homicide preliminary in November 1993, Thompson was portrayed as the pioneer and Venables the supporter. This was large because Thompson frequently appeared unfazed, whereas Venables frequently appeared more emotional. In the meantime, court-appointed psychiatrists claimed that Venables and Thompson were both aware of the distinction between right and wrong. Additionally, they stated that neither boy was a sociopath. The psychiatrists, on the other hand, were unable to identify a motive for this terrible crime. To this day, the motive still remains unclear. Robert Thompson and Jon Venables were found guilty of abducting and killing James Bulger on November 24, 1993. This made them the youngest killers ever to be convicted in British history. When the boys turned 18, they were given the order to remain in prison until a review. Where are Robert Thompson and Jon Venables now? From 1993 to 2001, Venables spent time in jail in the Red Bank Secure Unit in St. Helens, Merseyside. He is said to have admitted to his fellow inmates that he was a car thief while he was there. Thompson developed an interest in theatre and art while being held at Barton Moss near Manchester. Both Venables and Thompson were released at age 18 in June 2001. They were both given new identities as a result of the national uproar that surrounded their case. The two men have gone their separate ways ever since. Despite the fact that Thompson was thought to have been the mastermind behind the James Bulger assassination plot, he has never reoffended since being released. His current whereabouts are unknown, but he is said to be in a stable relationship with a man who is aware of his past. Regarding Venables, he has been rearrested multiple times, most recently for possessing child pornography and a pedophile manual that detailed how to vilely abuse young girls. Venables was initially sentenced to prison in 2010 for possessing images of child abuse, but he was freed in 2013. In 2017, he was taken into custody once more for the same offense. In addition, in 2018, he was given a 40-month prison term after admitting to possessing the pedophile manual and over 1,000 images of child abuse. In September 2020, Venables was denied parole for the most recent time. He was then informed that he would not be eligible for parole again for 2 more years. Venables, on the other hand, does not want to be released, according to some sources, partly due to his inability to abstain from drugs and partly due to fears that he will reoffend. Ralph Bulger, James Bulger's father, is of the opinion that if Venables were to be released right now, he would be at risk of committing a new murder. I trust the best way to keep him from killing another child like James is to keep him locked up for life, Ralph Bulger said because of the parole board's decision. How can anyone claim that this monster will never again be able to live among us?